Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, gather around the virtual water coolers. We talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, all sorts of good stuff, and it's good to have you here on this Monday, start of a brand new week, start of 5 days of triumph and victory that lay in front of you, my friends. Listen, I'm going to mention, I'm flying solo today, and you guys who are watching live, you probably recognize we're starting the show a little bit later than normal. Robert was going to be joining me today, but what happened was something kind of work-related came up last night that was urgent. I was working on it into the wee hours of the night, and then finally around 3 or 4 a.m., I had to change the start time of today's show because I'm like, there's no way I'm getting up at 5. There's no way I'm getting up at 5. So I had to change the start time. And unfortunately, because I had to bump the start time today to 11 o'clock, that didn't work with Robert's schedule. So we'll be back to our regular time tomorrow, and Robert will be back on tomorrow, and then we'll go for there. But listen, guys, we have a hell of a lot of stuff that we need to talk about here today. And listen, I want to let you guys know too, a little bit of a plug for the podcast. If you guys sometimes find yourself like, hey, I'm on the road, I'm commuting, I'm at work, I'm at the gym, whatever, not the best opportunity to pop open a YouTube video per se. Well then, good news. We've got the John Campea Show podcast. It's the audio-only version of the show. You can find it on your favorite podcasting app of choice. Just go find it, subscribe to it, so it's there whenever you need it. All right, guys. With all that down, let's get off to a couple of off the tops that we need to talk about here today. And the first thing I want to talk about off the top is this. You know, Blumhouse has just, Blumhouse, however people like to pronounce it. I say it both ways all the time. One day I'll say Blumhouse, the next day I'll say Blumhouse, and I'm pretty sure it's Blumhouse, actually. Or Blumhouse. I'm pretty sure it's Blumhouse because it's Jason Blum and it's named after him. And yet for some reason, there's something in my head that says it's pronounced Blumhouse. I don't know. Let's call it Blumhouse for now. Anyway, they are one of the highest batting average production companies out there right now. They make these movies on average for about $36 each. Yeah, they make a movie for about $36. The same amount of money you would pay to go and eat a chicken dinner at Wood Ranch, they pay to make a feature film. And then they make $2 or $3 million. They're just, all their films are like, not all of them, but for the most part, their films are like crazy profitable. Well, they've got another one coming out that I'm going to tell you for a number of different reasons really has my attention. It's called You Should Have Left. Now, one of the main reasons it gets my attention is because I am a big Kevin Bacon fan. I like Kevin Bacon very much, and I like all the stuff that he's done, especially even the last 10 years or so. I really like remember he did that little show about the serial killer that was on Fox, lasted 2 or 3 seasons? I like that show, whatever. He's also got Amanda Seyfried, who I'm hit or miss on Amanda Seyfried, but it's a little horror film coming straight to video on June 19th called You Should Have Left. It's called You Should Have Left. And I'll tell you what, I started watching this trailer and like the first few seconds of it are like, okay, this looks like kind of your standard run-of-the-mill, you know, horror flair. But then it gets to that part in the trailer where you realize, wait a minute, I didn't send you the listing of the house. You sent it to me. No, you sent it to me. And that's when the whole thing starts to unravel. You're like, oh my gosh, there are like so many different levels of this. This is one of the best trailers for a like small horror film that I've seen in a long time because it introduces the stars, it introduces your basic premise, right? But then it shows you a couple of the curveballs as well. And yet, even though it's showing me a bunch of curveballs, by the end of it, I still had no idea what was going on. Like I still had no idea what was going on in this particular movie. And I thought it looked great. Now, one of the cool things about it, it's being written by David Cope. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, who was like the writer of Jurassic Park. He also wrote another movie horror film that Kevin Bacon was in that I actually quite like called Stir of Echoes. And he's got a really good resume. If you go and find his IMDb page, you'll find he's got a lot of really good stuff. So I saw this trailer. I thought it looked really sharp and really good. And I, for one, am quite excited. I don't normally get too stoked for straight-to-home video movies, but being Blumhouse, being Kevin Bacon, being David Cope, being this trailer, I thought was really sharp. I thought the trailer was really sharp. I, for one, am looking forward to You Should Have Left. So what do you guys think? Jump on down to the comments section and let me know. Are you looking forward to this movie? Yes or no? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. All right. With that down, let's move on to one more thing off the top before we get into our main topics. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on right now with Last of Us. Not only is the first game still one of the most psychotically popular video games of all time, not only do we have the second game coming out here soon, who, despite the controversy surrounding the leaks, all the early word I'm hearing is that this game might be even better than the first game. So we'll find out. I think the official review embargo lifts on the 12th. I'm pretty sure it's June 12th that the official review embargo lifts. But anyway, everything I'm hearing so far about it is pretty damn good. It's all sounding pretty damn good. So that's great. But on top of all of that, we've got a Last of Us series coming. There is a Last of Us series coming. Now, we've already known that the showrunner for that amazing Emmy-winning series, Chernobyl, was going to be the showrunner of it. But apparently now they've doubled down on the Chernobyl team that won all those awards. And they're even bringing over the director, I believe you pronounce his name, Johan Rennick. He's actually coming over to be the director, probably not of the whole thing, because that's generally not how television works, but at least the pilot episode. And the pilot episode, you know, we've heard Aaron and Rob talk about this a lot on the show before. The pilot episode it's the most important one to have the right director in, because it's that pilot episode that sets the tone for everything, that all the other directors that come afterwards have to kind of keep in mind as they're doing it. Now, Johan has got not a lot of feature film work, but man, his resume on working on television has been crazy. Chernobyl. He did 3 episodes of Breaking Bad, The Walking Dead, Bloodline. He did episodes of Vikings and The Bates Motel. I mean, we already mentioned Walking Dead. What was that other one that he did that I like so much? Oh, I forget the one. I can't find that other one that I like so much that he did. But at any rate, this guy has a long, solid, impressive resume when it comes to working on dramatic and even genre television. So, I mean, if you're looking for somebody who's going to be able to step in and do something on Last of Us, which is series, horror elements, genre elements, it's got all that kind of stuff in it, I think this is a really good idea. Not to mention the fact that you are once again reteaming this Chernobyl team of the showrunner and the primary director, and the guy directed all the episodes of Chernobyl. I think this bodes very well. I think if you're somebody who's been looking forward to a Last of Us series or movie, I wanted a movie, but we're getting a series, that's fine. If you're somebody who's been looking forward to this has got to be nothing but good news to you. This has to be nothing but good news to you. Question is, what do you guys think about that whole thing? Jump on down into the comments section and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's completely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Edwin Munisk, who writes, "Hello, John et al. I watched those 2 crazy knockouts on UFC 250. Oh my God, 2 walk-off knockouts, 2 of the craziest knockouts I've seen in a long time. It was glorious. It was a really good card, despite the fact that my good Canadian girl got her ass handed to her. Anyway, those 2 crazy knockouts on UFC 250 the other night. But the other thing that stood out to me was there was a lot of marketing for that Russell Crowe movie, Unhinged. They kept saying, only in theaters on July 1st. With them spending all that advertising money, does this pretty much lock that it will, in fact, be in movie theaters in just 3 weeks? Does that bode well for Tenet? All right, thanks. All right, man, thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, listen, I know not everybody watches UFC. You know I'm a bit of an MMA fanatic, but during UFC 250, and for those of you who watched it, and it's like the big sporting thing on TV right now is on ESPN, and then the pay-per-view, it's the biggest thing. It's the biggest sport on TV right now because it's the only sport on TV right now. But during the UFC 250 broadcast, they were constantly, I mean, that whole thing was sponsored by Unhinged, which is surprising for a couple of reasons. The smaller reasons first. Number one, it's a smaller film. You don't normally see the smaller films spending that type of dollars that you need to be on the prime UFC. I mean, that's expensive. It's not Super Bowl expensive. Don't get me wrong. It's nothing like that, but it's still fairly expensive, right? So that was surprise number one. Surprise number two was that this studio, the studio behind Russell Crowe's new film Unhinged. This is their first feature. So for them to step out and say, we're going to spend this money on our first film, we're going to put this kind of money behind a film like this as our first film out of the gate, that was kind of impressive too. But the third thing that is by far the biggest and the most interesting here is the very fact that they were spending marketing dollars telling the public this movie is going to be in theaters in 3 weeks. When right now, about 80% of the theaters are still closed. Now, you guys remember last week we talked that the movie theater organization known as NATO, North American Theater Owners, they put out a statement that said they calculate that by July 17th, which is the day that Tenet is supposed to come out, they're calculating that by July 17th, 90% of the global theaters will be open again. Okay, whether that's true or not, we'll find out. July 1st, though, is 2 weeks earlier. Are they really that confident that those theaters are going to be open? Because listen, one of the reasons we've been seeing, studios hold back on trailers that are for movies that are even supposed to be coming out in August or September is because you got to spend a lot of money to drop those trailers on television and the print ads and stuff like that. That's a big, significant investment. And you've got to feel confident that, yep, our movie is going to make those release dates. You got to feel 100% confident about that. So I think you're seeing a lot of studios taking a very wise approach of saying, or distributors taking the wise approach of, let's just wait. Let's wait. Hold fire. They're waiting. So for this pretty much new studio to come out with this film and spend the type of dollars that they need to spend to basically have a takeover of a UFC event for their movie and advertise it as only in theaters July 1st. That tells me that they feel pretty confident that there's going to be a sufficient number of movie theaters open by that time. And Robert and I talked about Unhinged before when they first dropped their trailer. There's also an element here of being able to say ours was the first new movie, because remember, Warner Brothers wanted Tenet to be that. Warner Brothers wanted Tenet to be the first movie back in theaters. Well, they got hopscotched, maybe wisely, maybe unwisely, but now we've got Unhinged with Russell Crowe is going to be the first movie out in theaters. Whether that'll work to its benefit or its detriment, we'll have to find out. Now, as far as the last part of your question goes about, what does this bode well for Tenet? I'm going to say this. Just like NATO saying that they believe 90% of the theaters are going to be open by July 17th, and I said that doesn't guarantee that we're going to see Tenet out. I don't think Unhinged coming out on July 1st, if they're able to do it, I don't think that automatically guarantees that Tenet will hit July 17th either. It doesn't guarantee it. But if you're asking me, do I think this bodes well for Tenet? That this bodes well that on July 17th, we're going to see Christopher Nolan's new film with John David Washington and why am I suddenly afraid? Robert Pattinson and all these guys. I think it bodes well. Like if I was at like 70% certainty that I think Tenet was going to come out on July 17th, I think now I'm at 75. So I think it speaks well to it. But then you get into the issue of, is this even a smart move on their part? Like some people are still questioning whether it's even wise for Tenet to try to come out on July 17th. Is it a good idea to come out even two weeks earlier than that? I don't know. A part of my judgment on this is clouded because you guys know I just want to get back into the movie theaters. I just want to go to the movies again. So part of my judgment, I'm sure, is pretty much clouded on that, but maybe it's smart, maybe it's not. Question here is, guys, what do you think about this? Do you think that this movie, after spending all this money on its marketing, is indeed going to hit that July 1st release date? If so, what do you think that means for Tenet? Do you think that reinforces the idea that Tenet can come out 2 weeks later? Does it mean nothing? What do you guys think? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Geeky Gator, who writes, "Hey, John and gang. For the past few weeks, we movie fans have had little new and exciting content each weekend to keep us going. However, this weekend, we have 3 rather big new movies releasing digitally: Artemis Fowl, King of Staten Island, and Da 5 Bloods, the new Spike Lee film. I'm personally most excited for Da 5 Bloods. Which one are you most excited for? And should they space these movies out more evenly if they're on digital?" All right, thanks a lot for that, Geeky Gator. And yes, I mean, it feels weird to say it, but we actually have a week in front of us right now. July 12th is the date, to be specific. But we have a date in front of us right now where we've got 3 films that I am legitimately looking forward to watching. Unfortunately, they're not going to be in theaters for the real movie watching experience, but whatever. We're going to watch them at home if we want to. Those 3 films are the new Spike Lee film, Da 5 Bloods, The King of Staten Island, which honestly looks better than I thought. Anyway, and Artemis Fowl, which a lot of people think looks very good at all. I kind of thought it looked all right, but whatever. So we've got these 3 movies coming out on digital, which is rather exciting. And I can tell you right now, I'm actually looking forward to all 3 of these. Which one am I looking forward to the most? Well, I go back and forth a little bit, to be honest with you, about which one I'm actually looking forward to the absolute most. Because on one hand, Spike Lee, he just did BlacKkKlansman, which was my second favorite movie of the year a couple of years ago. BlacKkKlansman was only behind A Quiet Place for me as my second favorite film of the year. I love that movie. So that was great. The King of Staten Island, you're talking about Judd Apatow, right? The director of my all-time favorite comedy, 40-Year-Old Virgin. And even though I didn't like the sounds of the movie, I gotta say the trailer's been pretty good, so I'm looking forward to that. And then you got Artemis Fowl, a title I know nothing about, because I never read Artemis Fowl. I never read any of that stuff. But, I mean, I thought the trailer looked kind of fun. Everybody else hated the trailers, though. Everybody else hated the trailers, particularly people who did read the book seemed to be upset at the trailer. So I don't know. I didn't read the book, so I'm just like, oh, I think this looks like fun. Anyway, which one am I looking forward to the most? All right, let's start with this one. My third most anticipated one out of this group, because I am anticipating them all, but my third most anticipated one out of this group is King of Staten Island. Again, this is something that when I first heard the premise about it, yes, I was intrigued that Judd Apatow was directing it. Although I didn't like that one film he did not long ago, Funny People, he did with Adam Sandler. I actually wasn't a fan of that movie. A bunch of people are. That's cool. I like most of Judd Apatow's work. That one didn't quite work for me. But still, you know, he's doing this. But I've never been a Pete Davidson fan. I've never found him particularly funny on SNL. I know he plays, at least in one episode, he plays Nathan Fillion's brother in Nathan Fillion's show Rookie. It was kind of funny in that. So, you know, but I've never really been a fan of his. Just being honest, never been a fan of his. But then I saw the trailer. I was like, you know what? This has got a little bit of a 40-Year-Old Virgin feel to it. Not in the yuck way, but rather this feels like something that's going to have laughs, but also have legitimate heart to it, which is the thing I love most about 40-Year-Old Virgin. So it looks like it's going to have laughs and heart. And I got to tell you, my anticipation for that movie went from like a 3 to probably like a solid 6, which is a big jump up. And that's what a good trailer should do, right? A good trailer, the sign of a good trailer is when it takes your expectation level for a film, however high or low it is, and bump it up a couple of notches. And I'd say my anticipation went from a 3 out of 10 to a 6 out of 10 just from watching the trailer. So King of Staten Island is the number 3 on my list. Number 2, and this surprises me that I'm putting this at number 2, but is Spike Lee's Da 5 Bloods. Now, some of you who watch the show regularly might be thinking, but John, you reviewed the trailer and you were losing your mind for it. It's true. I am losing my mind for it. I think it looks incredible. And again, you just builds on the fact that this is Spike Lee's first film since Black Klansman, which I totally adored. Obviously, I've always been a huge fan of Do the Right Thing and Jungle Fever. I haven't loved everything Spike Lee's always done, to be honest, but I mean, he's on a bit of a roll. And then you look at this cast. Delroy Lindo, obviously, is amazing, one of the all-time greats. You, of course, have Chadwick Boseman in there, is great. I didn't know Jean Reno, though, was in the movie until I saw the trailer, which I thought was very exciting. It's a solid cast. It's a great premise for a film. Spike Lee directing, there's nothing not to like here for me. It's got, you know, and I'm a sucker for these stories that tell stories about people who have to go back to something that was traumatizing. There's a number of movies that kind of have that motif, and I'm always a sucker for those. So it implements war film elements, like dealing with past elements. There's a treasure hunt element to the movie. It's got so much wrapped into one, at least on its surface, that I can't help but be super excited for that. So my second most anticipated is Da 5 Bloods, which then leads us to the movie that really I didn't have a lot of interest in at all. You guys remember me talking in the early days when they were first talking about doing Artemis Fowl. I was like, I could give a crap about this movie. I mean, I don't give a crap about Artemis Fowl. I've never read the books. I don't care. Sounds silly. But then I saw the trailer. And the only reason I'm ranking it this high, and I don't know how, I mean, this movie might suck. I think there's probably a good chance this movie will suck, but I'm ranking it this high because you guys know I am a sucker for genre stuff. Magic and fantasy and sci-fi, and you know I'm a sucker for that stuff. I kind of lean heavily into it. And even though I know all the signs point against this movie, I know that people who know the books did not like the trailers. I know the fact that Disney dumped it onto streaming instead of doing its theatrical release. That tells me something about their confidence level in the film. It doesn't 100% guarantee it. But listen, I'm just saying, I know all the signs point against Artemis Fowl. But I like the trailer. It's got the fantasy element to it, which I'm a sucker for. So right now, be well rest assured, I'm going to be watching all three of these movies. I'm going to be watching all three. Now, as far as the last part of your question there about should they have spaced these movies out more? Like, should Disney have seen, wow, they're going to be releasing Staten Island and Da 5 Bloods on the same day. Well, we should move things around. You know what? I don't think so. If it's home video, it doesn't matter. Because it's not like going out to a movie, which is the best way to watch these films and would have been infinitely better. But, I mean, it's a lot easier just to watch it at home. So you don't have to worry about, you know, going out and all that kind. You're in your underwear sitting at home saying, okay, click play. Great. It's done. I can now just click play on the next one. I don't even have to move. I don't even have to go piss. I can just grab the empty 2-liter empty Coke bottle beside me, stick the tip in and fill up the bottle. There. I don't even have to go to the bathroom. I can just sit there, boom, click, watch. So I honestly don't think that there's going to be any problem with it being crowded. I don't think there's any problem with that. You can sit down at your leisure, pop it on, and watch. So I don't think they needed to separate them or move them apart. The question here for you guys is this. Out of these three movies, and I'm looking forward to all three of these, but out of these three movies, Artemis Fowl, Da 5 Bloods, The King of Staten Island, which one are you looking forward to the most? Is there any of these three that you're not looking forward to at all? I'm expecting a bunch of people to say Artemis Fowl, which is totally understandable. I get that. But what do you guys think about that? Do you think maybe they should have pushed their dates apart further? I don't think there's a problem with it. Maybe you do. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Sam Sprill, who writes, "Hey, John. Ari Aster, director of Hereditary and Midsommar, recently did an interview saying that his next project could be a 4-hour nightmare comedy. I don't see people rushing to see a 4-hour movie in theaters. Will this be another director's cut just like Midsommar, which had a 3-hour cut, or could this go straight to theaters? Thoughts?" All right. Thanks a lot for saying that in, man. And yeah, listen, Ari Aster is a really interesting filmmaker right now because those two films alone, right? First of all, Hereditary was fantastic. How Toni Collette did not get an Academy Award nomination for her performance in Hereditary to this day baffles me. Absolutely baffles me. I would go so far as to call her lack of a nomination a snub because I actually Going into the announcements of the Academy Award nominees, I actually thought she had a chance to win Best Actress. I thought it was a foregone conclusion she's getting a nomination. I thought she had a chance to win. So to this day, I'm really shocked she didn't get a nomination. Anyway, that said, then he went on and did Midsommar. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you, I'm one of the guys who I didn't really appreciate Midsommar. I didn't hate it, but I didn't appreciate it that much. And it's one of those films. It's one of those films that a bunch of people either love or hate. A few people like me kind of in the middle, but I was not a big fan of it. But, oh my God, it is a movie that got people talking. Like everybody who saw Midsommar talked about Midsommar, right? Everybody talked about it. That's what that movie does. It got you thinking and it got you talking. Whether you liked it or not, it got you talking. So he's a really interesting filmmaker. So he put out some, not surprisingly, fairly interesting thoughts. He came out and said his next thing will be a nightmare comedy. A nightmare comedy. Which I'm okay. That sounds like it would be kind of consistent. Maybe move a little bit more humor into that. I mean, there was a little bit of humor in his previous films, but yeah, go nightmarish, which you're clearly good at. Throw in some comedy, why not? That's not the part that's catching people's attention, though. The part that's catching people's attention is this whole notion of 4 hours long. 4 hours long. It's so abrupt when you come across those words, 4 hours. It's so abrupt that it actually leaves me thinking like there's not even any point in discussing should he do it as a 4-hour film. And the reason I don't even think it's worth having the discussion of should he do it as a 4-hour film is because I don't think there's any chance in the world that any studio will let him do this as a 4-hour film. I can't see any studio saying, yeah, go do this as a 4-hour film, because the studios do it and then they go to the movie theaters. Hey, can you put our movie on a bunch of screens? The movie theaters are going to go, is this $1 billion film? No. Then why would we want to take up that kind of real estate? Like 4 hours, 4 hours. No, no way. I just can't see it happening. The only way I can see this being a 4-hour film and him actually being able to do it and make it as a 4-hour film. And by the way, I could be dead wrong about this. Maybe a distributor has already said, yep, you can do it as a 4-hour film and it's all set. That could be the case. Here's why I don't think it is, though. This is why I don't think it is, why I don't think it makes any sense. Because studios know that'll turn off a bunch of audience and theaters won't want. Theaters will push back because that limits their amount. When you limit the amount of screenings that a theater can do, that means you limit how many people they can bring into the theater. When you limit how many people you can bring into the theater, that limits how much popcorn, soda, and candy they sell. And that's how movie theaters make their money. So there will get pushback from the movie theaters, I think. The only way I can see, there's only two scenarios here that I see that this could be a 4-hour movie, whatever this movie is, this nightmare comedy. Scenario number one is exactly what you just said in your message. Is this a director's cut thing? Where he makes it as a 4-hour movie, but what gets released is a 2.5-hour movie. I could see that happening. The 2.5-hour movie gets released, and then they do the big celebratory, look everybody, because director's cuts are now the big thing. Look everybody, this is a whole 90 extra minutes. I could see that happening. I could see that happening. The second possibility here is that it's not a theatrical release film. There's a lot less restrictions on how long you make a movie when you're just going to put it on a streaming service. If you're just going to dump it on a streaming service, there's fewer limitations there, right? Because people at home can watch 45 minutes of it, hit stop, go out, do whatever they're going to do that night, come back, watch another 30 minutes before bed, stop it, go to bed, wake up the next day, watch another hour of it the next day, stop it. I mean, you can do that. You don't have to worry about how many hours is one movie taking up one of our screens. You don't have to worry about that. Now, that's not to say that as an audience, you don't feel the length of the movie. Listen, I liked Irishman very, very much. You guys saw me review it. I liked Irishman a lot, but it was longer than it needed to be. It didn't need to be that long. It just simply didn't need to be that long. And when you get into a movie that is that length, that didn't need to be that length, like some movies are 3.5 hours long that need to be that long. Irishman wasn't one of those films. And I felt the length of it. So I'm not saying there's no drawback to having an exceptionally long movie on home streaming. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying there are less drawbacks doing it on home video release as opposed to a theatrical release. There are less limitations. So yeah, I can only see, even though it very well could happen, I can only personally see two scenarios here in which a 4-hour thing gets done. Number one, it's done as a director's cut to a 2.5-hour release. Number two, it's a straight to streaming video. If that's the case, then I think it's more probable. But I don't know. Guys, what do you think? He's saying he's going to make a 4-hour-long nightmare comedy. Do you think that can work? Do you think it's going to happen? What do you think about my proposal about there's only two real scenarios that it could? Maybe you can think of others. Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Joseph. And Joseph writes, with the new Indiana Jones movie coming out, do you think that there is any chance that they would include Shia Labeouf, and that's a billion-dollar question, in the movie? A couple of years ago, they said they wouldn't include him, but with the multiple rewrites and his resurgence recently, do you think this might bring up his chances? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And oh my goodness, Shia LaBeouf. I mean, first of all, what a year he had, right? Last year? What a year. Like what an absolute year he had. 2 incredible films, 2 incredible performances. My favorite of 2 happened to be Peanut Butter Falcon, but whatever. Just an incredible, incredible year he had. And listen, I've been saying this for years and years, ever since my movie blog days. You may not necessarily like every movie he's in, but I am telling you, Shia LaBeouf is a killer actor. He's an absolute killer actor. He's amazing. He might be a few cookies short of a pack, maybe. But it doesn't matter. Once he gets in front of a camera and once he's doing his craft, he's one of the best. He's incredible. He really is. That said, I think the chances of him appearing in a new Indiana Jones movie are very, very low. For a couple of reasons. Number one, you don't pay attention to how hot is the actor when trying to decide where you're going to take your movie when that actor isn't even the primary focus. Obviously, Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones, he's the main guy. That's what they're doing. Number two, I don't think Shia LaBeouf ever wants to go back to that. He may have taken some crap in his career for doing this Transformers movies, but he never took anywhere near as much crap as he did for doing that Indiana Jones film, for playing mutt, for swinging through the trees. You know, he never took as much crap in anything he did in his career, I think, as much as he did for that. So I don't think he wants to be back. I don't think the audience wants to see that character back. And that's not a referendum on, I don't personally believe that's a referendum on how people feel about Shia LaBeouf. I think it's just a referendum on how they felt about the character and how they felt about that movie in general. So I don't think there's that. And I don't think the studio wants to go back to him on that. Not because they don't like him, but because I don't think they want to remind people of Crystal Skull. So no, I just don't see it happening. Now, if I had to be put like backed into a corner a little bit and I had to give my thoughts on what would be an argument to bring him back, like what's a good argument that kind of lays out, here's basis for bringing him back. I would go to what you were saying. He has definitely had a more of a resurgence in the last couple of years. That much is clear. That much is absolutely true. He obviously is incredibly gifted. There have been the rewrites. I think you laid out a lot of good things in there that I would personally use if I had to debate the side that I think there's a chance he'd be back. But even with all that said, I think the chances are very, very, very slim. I'd put the chances in the single digits. 4%, 6%, in that neighborhood. Not impossible. We've learned never to say anything's impossible in this business, but I think the chances do stand as being very, very, very low. Question is, guys, what do you think? Do you think there's any chance that we could see Shia LaBeouf come back as Mutt, come back and play Indiana Jones's son in this last hurrah for Harrison Ford? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. And our fifth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Yosef Silver, who writes, "Greetings and salutations, everyone. I know John is a fan of Josh Trank, so I was just wondering if you saw his comments about Fantastic Four. Apparently, he wanted to cast a Black Sue Storm, and Fox wouldn't let him. I personally liked the adopted angle of it, but what do you think? Would the movie have been significantly better if Sue Storm had been black, like Johnny was?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that question in, man. And it is crazy that for whatever reasons, in different ways, at different times, as bad as it was, and I don't think by the way, I don't think Josh Trank's Fantastic Four was like the worst movie we've ever seen. It was better than I thought it would be. It was still bad. It was still bad. But it was better than I thought it would be. I've told this story before, but I remember, going to the Fox lot and going to watch the first screening of Fantastic Four, which, by the way, was only like 24 hours before the review embargo left. So we all automatically knew, okay, so this movie's going to be bad, right? Fox knows this movie is bad. That's why they're only showing it to us like 24 hours before the movie comes out. Fine. And we all heard about how much drama had went into the movie getting made. And we heard all the drama of this and all the drama of that. And it just left us all thinking like, this is going to be a total train wreck. And I remember I was sitting beside Christian Harloff in the theater, and we got about a half hour into the movie, and I remember we looked at each other confused, and we said, this isn't all that bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but like in the first act of the film, we looked at each other and we're like, this isn't terrible. Like this honestly isn't all that bad. It wasn't all that great, but it wasn't all that bad. So anyway, then of course the next two acts basically fell apart. Anyway, here we are years later. And for some reason, somehow, some way, I can't explain it, we're still talking about that Fantastic Four movie, which is kind of crazy to me. But Josh Trank recently did an interview with current events being there, actually did an interview with RB3, did an interview with Robert Butler III. This comes to us from the website of Geeks of Color. And he did an interview with Josh Trank in which he revealed something kind of interesting. And that was this. This is Josh Trank speaking. "There were a lot of controversial conversations that were had behind the scenes on that," Trank said, talking about the Sue Storm and Fantastic Four and the casting. "I was mostly interested in a Black Sue Storm and a Black Johnny Storm and a Black Franklin Storm. But also, when you're dealing with a studio on a massive movie like that, everybody wants to keep an open mind too, like who the big stars are going to be. Maybe it's going to be Margot Robbie or something like that. But when it came down to it, I found a lot of pretty heavy pushback on casting a black woman in that role." So that's one of the comments that came up as a result of that, which is interesting. Now, he actually went on to say other things as well. Let me bring up this other thing that he said as well, which I think is worth mentioning at this point at any rate. He said, "When I look back on that," this is still Josh Trank speaking. "When I look back on that, I should have just walked when the realization sort of hit me. And I feel embarrassed about that I didn't just out of principle, like quit the job out of principle. Because those aren't the values I stand for in my life. Those weren't the values or even for me, because I'm somebody who always talks about standing up for what I believe in, even if it means burning my career out. I feel bad that I didn't take it to the mat with that issue. I feel like I failed in that regard." All right, so let's go to the bigger picture on this and go back to the question that you asked. Number one, should we be surprised that there was pushback on the issue of casting a black actress for Fantastic Four? No. But the main reason I think we shouldn't be surprised by that is because 70% of the time, the studio will give the director pushback on what they want to do with casting. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't work out. I'm sure a lot of times it does. But directors always get pushback on their casting choices and casting decisions. There's always pushback. So am I surprised on one level that there was pushback on that? No, I'm not surprised. On that level, I'm not surprised. Now look. I'm going to say something that I have said for years, going back to the movie blog days, and I'm going to warn you all, it's going to upset all of you. You are all going to dislike what I'm going to have to say. You can all, in unity, join hands and join together in disliking what I'm about to say. Because what I'm about to say, nobody ever likes. Nobody ever likes what I'm going to have to say, but I'm just telling you my honest opinion of it. When it comes to the race of characters, particularly comic book characters, but almost anything. When it comes to the race of characters, and what do I think about them using an Asian person in this role, a white person in that role, a black person in that role, whatever. My opinion has always been, and everybody disagrees with me, has always been, unless the ethnicity of the character is a core essential part of the DNA of who that character is and our understanding of that character is. For example, King T'Challa of Wakanda. That's part of the DNA, the whole background of that character. You can't have, a European, you can't have an Asian dude, you can't have a white dude, you can't. It's just the part of the baked in DNA of who that character is, and it's an important part of who that character is and our fundamental understanding of that character is. That character's got to be played by a black actor. There are white characters, I think, listen, understanding the Caucasian background and heritage of that character is key and essential to who and what that character is. Or an Asian character, that's a key and essential to who that character is. My opinion has always been, and everybody hates this, is that unless you can make an argument to me, and there are examples where you can, that the ethnicity of a character in a movie is on a DNA level directly encoded into who and what that character is and our basic fundamental understanding of what that character is and represents and their background and who they are, then I don't care. I remember back when Daredevil was coming out and they decided to get Michael Clark Duncan to play Daredevil, and a whole bunch of people got really upset that they were doing that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I don't care. Michael Clark Duncan, oh, R.I.P. Michael Clark Duncan. I love Michael Clark Duncan. Michael Clark Duncan's a great actor. I love him. He's fantastic. He's going to be, and by the way, I don't care what anybody says about that Daredevil movie. I thought Michael Clark Duncan was a great Daredevil. Daredevil. I thought he was a great Kingpin. The point was, Kingpin, to me, and again, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm telling you, I'm trying to explain to you why I have the position I have. Kingpin to me, being white or black or Asian or Eastern Europe, it didn't matter. None of that was any part of my core essential understanding of the fundamentals on a DNA level of who that character is. The color of the skin didn't change anything of that to me. So I didn't mind. I don't care. When I found out that Michael B. Jordan was going to be playing Johnny Storm, the same thought. Okay, great. Michael B. Jordan is a world-class actor. So I don't care. There's nothing about the Johnny Storm character, except for the fact that he's always been portrayed as being white. There's nothing about his character when you read his history that makes it fundamentally important that that ethnicity stays. So when they announced that Michael B. Jordan was going to be playing Johnny Storm, I'm like, oh, right on. Michael B. Jordan's an amazing actor. Fantastic. Because it wasn't long after that we saw Fruitvale Station that was announced. And I'm like, yeah, damn right. Michael B. Jordan playing. That's going to be great. And then, of course, they had Franklin played, was played by a black actor as well. And so they decided to take the approach of, you know what, let's throw in an adoption angle on this. So let's change those two characters and let's keep this one character the same. And we changed the background story that there's an adoption level to that. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought bringing in the adoption angle on that, it gave me a greater appreciation. And again, I'm only speaking for myself. It gave me a greater appreciation for the dynamic and the relationship between Johnny and Sue. But that's just me. It may not have done that for you. And if it didn't, that's perfectly fine. Am I surprised that Fox gave pushback to Josh Trank about wanting to change Sue Storm's ethnicity to black? Yeah, a little, maybe. But I'll tell you what I'm more surprised at. especially given everything today. I'm more surprised that Fox, when Josh Trank said, I want Franklin to be a black character and I want Johnny to be a black character, I'm more surprised that Fox said, sure, go ahead and do that. Maybe that's me being, maybe I'm just being overly pessimistic and I'm overly skeptical, but I got to tell you, to this day, I am still surprised, pleasantly surprised. I am still to this day surprised that they let him change Johnny and Franklin. I'm surprised they did. I thought it worked, but I'm still surprised that they did. And again, maybe that's just me being overly critical, overly skeptical, overly pessimistic. Maybe. Very much could be the case. Could be. But I honestly don't see, from my limited perspective, I don't see why Josh Trank, who I like very much, by the way, I like Josh Trank very much. I don't see why he would use language with, I should have quit the job over it. It's like, dude, listen, if you can go to the person paying your check and get 2/3 of what you were asking for, that's a pretty good win. Like if you walk into your boss's office and you say, I got a list of 3 demands, and they actually give on 2 of them, say, okay, you know what? We'll give you 1 and we'll give you 3, but we're not going to give you 2. I think you take that as a win. I don't know. And again, that's just coming from my limited perspective. I'm sure there are perspectives that I'm not looking at from that if I did, maybe it would change my view on it. It might. It very well could. That's a beautiful thing about life. We learn new lessons. We change our perceptions. I mean, that's life. Life changes and evolves. But right now, I'm still kind of in this place of, I don't care. Like, I just don't understand when I see people get all mad that Michael B. Jordan's playing Johnny Storm. I'm like, why are you mad? What is there about Johnny Storm, the character, that you probably don't even know much about? But what is there, for those of you who do know a lot about him, what is there about the character that makes it essential from a narrative point of view that this character has to be white? Has to be white. It's just not the Johnny Storm character if it's not. I don't think you can make that argument. You can make that argument for some characters. I do not think you can make that argument for the Johnny Storm character. That's just my opinion. But I got to apply that rule both ways. I didn't see anything watching, Fantastic Four. I didn't see anything in Fantastic Four that made me feel that within the context of this movie, on a narrative DNA level, Sue Storm has to be either white or black. I didn't see anything that necessitated, from a narrative perspective, that one character be white or black. And so I have no problem that they kept her white any more than I had any problem that they made Johnny Storm black. To me, you had 2 great performers, right? You had Kate Mara. You had, I'm trying to remember why am I freezing on the name of the guy who played Franklin, who was also in House of Cards, and he was amazing in that. I'm freezing on the name of the guy who played Franklin. Anyway, but then you also had Johnny Storm, right? So you had Sue and Johnny, adopted. Great. Fabulous. What's wrong? I don't know. So that's just for me. Now, as far as the question of, would it have improved the movie if Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm was playing opposite a black actress playing Sue Storm? No. It certainly wouldn't have made the movie any worse. I don't think it would have made the movie any better. Look, the fundamental problems with Fantastic Four and all the drama that went on behind the scenes, those things were still there. Wouldn't have made a difference. I don't think it would have made a difference, honestly. At least not a material difference. I don't think it would have made it any worse. I don't think it would have practically made it any better. And because I don't think it would have made it any materially worse or materially any better, because it really doesn't essentially change anything about the story, I then don't think it becomes that big of an issue to discuss. If we were talking about an issue, for say, that I think could have fundamentally changed the course of that movie from being a bad film to a really good film, well, then it becomes more important. When it doesn't have that, when the topic we're discussing, I don't think offers that type of course change, I don't know that I care that much, and I don't know that it makes that much of a difference or is all that important. But again, this is for this specific set of circumstances. I still thought it was a really interesting answer, though. I thought it was a really interesting answer, and it gives it gives us a little bit more of a look into how complicated and rough that entire Fantastic Four movie even started off with. That it even started off with a conversation between a director and the studio about a casting decision that nearly made the director go, well, then I'm quitting. Then I'm out. That's how rocky this project started off. That's how rough this project started off. So I still think that's interesting. Anyway, it's a fascinating interview. I encourage you all to go and check it out in full. So yeah, there's that. Question is, guys, what do you think about that? Do you think it could have fundamentally made the movie any better or any worse? Do you think Josh Trank did the right thing by hanging in there at the moment? Do you think maybe he should have said, no, if you're not going to let me make this character what I want it to be, I'm going to walk? How do you feel about that? Do you think maybe there needed to be a little bit of compromise? I don't know. Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, we're going to get ready to move in now to start taking your live questions. Now, before we do, I am going to take a short break here. I'm going to go rest the vocal cords, refill my drink. Zevia Cola, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go refill my drink. I know they don't sponsor me, but they really should. I'm going to go refill my drink, stretch my legs. Now, normally what I do here is I will normally play the 4-minute countdown clock, right? I'm not going to do that today. Now, once in a while, for those of you guys who've watched my show for any length of time, you know, once in a while, fans will send in like art that I really like, and we'll display some art, whether it's, you know, fan art of me or something else, whatever. And every once in a while, we'll display some art. Well, art is many different things. Art isn't just drawing. And a couple of days ago, one of the viewers of the show, his name's Justin Welsh, sent to me and Aaron and Robert and Chris and Ann that he sent us this message on Twitter saying he's inspired by the John Campea Show and to do the things he loves to do. And he sent me this video that, I'm not going to lie to you, made me, on a very visceral level, hate him a little bit, because seeing people who are infinitely more talented than me, I would love to be a great singer. I would love to be a great singer, and I'm not a great singer. I can sing, but I'm not a great singer. And this guy is. Anyway, so in lieu of a countdown clock, for me taking this little break, let me share with you this video that on Twitter, your fellow viewer and watcher of the John Campea Show, Justin Welsh, sent in. Sit back, relax, and enjoy from a good Canadian postal worker dude. This is Justin Welsh.
Go out and tell our story, let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you, make them hear you. How justice was our battle, and how justice was denied. Make them hear you, make them hear you. And say to those who blame us for the way we chose to fight, that sometimes there are battles which are more than black or white. And I could not put down my sword when justice was my right. Make them hear you, make them hear you. Go out and tell our story to your daughters and your sons. Make them hear you, make them hear you. And tell them in our troubles we were not the only ones. Make them hear you, make them hear you. Proclaim it from your pulpit, in your classroom with your pen. Teach every child to raise his voice, and then, my brothers, then will justice be demanded by 10 million righteous men. Make them hear you. When they hear you, I'll be near you again. So sorry about that. My little thumbs up was actually a fellow postie was passing by me. He probably realized what I was doing because I've become a little bit, quote unquote, infamous at the station in terms of these Canadian singing postie stuff. And I think it's a buddy of mine. So
All right. I think we can all join together and say, fuck that guy, making us look bad, making the rest of us look bad. You know, my wife look at me. Why can't you sing to me like that? Fuck that guy. Anyway, people's talent amazes me. People's talent absolutely amazes me. And you know, it's funny because you're thinking like, it makes me look at people in the street differently. It makes me look at people in the street differently because this dude is a good Canadian kid, you know, working with the Canadian Postal Service. And it's like anybody you walk down the street you can look at and you never know what kind of incredibly sick, stupid talent they may have that would also make you say, F that guy. But yeah, so that was kind of amazing. So to Justin, thank you so much for sending that in. My wife and I both loved listening to it. I know Aaron and Rob and Chris all enjoyed hearing it as well. So thank you for that. And guys, listen, a reminder, if you guys got some stuff, look, I'm not guaranteeing, hey, send me anything and I'll just put it on the show. But listen, if you got some, like any type of artistic thing you do, I love seeing it. If you have and you want to email it to me, just email it to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. All right. Guys, with all that down, let's now dive in and start taking your live questions. And we're going to get things started off here with Ryan Hewitt, who writes, I love hearing that you are giving Avatar: The Last Airbender a chance. It has resonated with me since I watched it when I was 10. After rewatching over quarantine, its themes and characters have so much depth that as an adult, it makes me appreciate it even more. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, because I mentioned it on Twitter, I have decided now that it's on Netflix, I am going to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender series. Because I've never really watched it. And so here's an interesting thing. I put up a tweet saying, guys, I got a bowl of ice cream, got my favorite pillow. I'm settling in to watch season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender. So then I went ahead and watched the first 4 episodes. And I'm going to be honest with you. Even for an animated series, I found it a little childish, but the mythology they were laying was actually really cool. I loved the mythology of it, but it felt a little bit childish to me. And I was like, okay. But then I went back to the first tweet I put out saying, hey guys, I'm about to watch Airbender. And I read through like 100 responses people wrote back in. And the vast majority of them were trying to warn me in advance saying, okay, Campea, awesome. Now listen, Campea, just be ready. The first season is a little bit more kid targeted. Like the whole series is kid friendly, but the first season is a little bit more kid targeted. Just be ready for that. So I saw a bunch of you guys were trying to give me the heads up on that. And I thought, okay, cool. But I think the mythology is good, so I'm going to keep watching. So I watched about 3 or 4 more episodes. They're really short. They're 23 minutes each. And I got to say, I'm liking it so far. But everybody is telling me, Campea, it's nothing. Wait till you get to seasons 2 and 3. When you get to book 2 and 3, that's where it really picks up. And I got to say, I'm enjoying it so far. I'm not loving it like crazy like a lot of people are so far, but everybody seems to be telling me that that's to be expected right now, but they say it just really starts to ramp up. But I'm enjoying it so far already. So thank you to everybody for getting me. I'm sure it's making Chris Carr completely thrilled that I'm finally watching Last Airbender. You know what my favorite character is so far? I'm about 8 or 9 episodes in. My favorite character so far is actually the prince, like the Fire Nation prince. So far, and his uncle the general. They're actually like my favorite characters so far. I really, really dig them. Anyway, let's keep going. All right, Ronan writes, hey, John, if you haven't already, you should check out Space Force on Netflix. There are a few comedy shows that can make me laugh when watched by myself. It's cliche, but Steve Carell is a comedic genius. Also, never let's forget D-Day Soldiers, June 6th, 1944. That's right. That day did just pass us, didn't it? As far as Space Force goes, I'll tell you that I only have seen the first episode so far because I've been very excited about the show, and I wasn't a big fan of the first episode. So I will watch another 1 or 2 to give it another chance because it is Steve Carell and I love him a lot. But I thought the first episode wasn't bad, but it was mediocre. I thought it was So I'm going to give it another shot. I'll watch episodes 2 and I'll probably watch episode 3 to at least say I gave it a couple of episodes, but so far I'm not impressed. which is too bad because you guys know I've been loving and really excited to see it. But I will, Ronan, trust me, I will at least try another 1 or 2 episodes, see if it can get me hooked too. All right, Wakanda Forever writes, I did not about this, but I found the Why Black Panther and Black Heroes Are Important video. You get it, John. Accusing you of racism is bad enough, but to use Black Panther to do it is shameful. As the Wakandan Forever, I support what you said, case closed. So the 30-second Coles notes, for those of you who don't know what's going on. A couple of years ago, I made a video before Black Panther came out just called Why Black Panther and Movies with Black Heroes Are Important. So you can find that on my YouTube channel. A few days later, I did another video based on a question that somebody wrote in, because you guys know people write in questions, and I based the title of the video based on the questions that somebody wrote in. Because somebody was asking, since Black Panther is opening so close to Infinity War, is Disney just using that movie as a promotional tool for Infinity War? I thought that was an interesting question. So I answered the question in a video where I laid out, no, they're not doing that because of these reasons. Here's why Disney is not doing that. Because of that, a certain jellyfish, instead of calling me or getting in touch with me, got on Twitter and started tweeting out that John Campea doesn't want movies with black heroes. Based on nothing but the title of a video was called, I can't remember the exact wording, but is Disney just using Black Panther as promotional for Infinity War? Now remember, this was 3 days after I put out a video called Why Black Panther and Movies with Black Heroes Are Important. But this guy came at me. I asked, did you even watch the video? He said no. And then eventually he put out an apology, which I accepted. And I respected that he apologized. Said, I'm man enough to admit I was wrong. Great. Case closed. Fast forward 2 years later, this same dude proved he's a dishonorable worm, I guess, because now he came out and came at me again for the exact same thing, saying, Campea just thought Black Panther was just a promotional tool for Infinity War. It's like, I never said that, and you already apologized for that. To which the guy said, I didn't mean my apology. Oh, okay, so you're a lying sack of crap on top of everything else. You're a dishonorable lying sack of crap. Okay, that's fine. I'm not even going to mention the guy's name because I don't care. The bottom line is, I'm done with that, and I don't really care because it's just, as far as the importance to my life goes, it's so inconsequential that I'm just going to move past. So I don't care. I appreciate that you asked about it. I appreciate your words. I appreciate you brought it up, but that's the last time I'm going to mention it because it's simply not worth the sweat on my brow to even worry about it, to be honest. So I appreciate that you asked. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't care anymore. Just going to move past it. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, I just watched Dark Side of the Ring Montreal episode. Yeah, the Screwjob episode. The story makes you want to know more. There is a movie there. If a studio wanted to make it, do they need WWE's permission? Listen, I'm not really clear. Like, when you're making a movie based on real events, whose permission do you need to get? Like, I get it. If you're going to do a movie about Elton John, like Rocket Man, you need to get his permission. But then what about all the other characters in the movie? What about all the other real life figures? Do you need their permission? I'm not really clear on when and where you need people's permission to have their character in a movie. I'm not clear on that. So yeah, I'm not sure. Because remember, there was a little while ago, when this terrific director who directed Punisher Warzone, she was planning on making a movie about the Chris Benoit situation called Crossface. But that kind of fell away. Again, I don't know if that's a rights issue. Like, do you need the WWE's permission? Do you need Shawn Michaels' permission? Do you need Bret Hart's permission? Do you need, I don't know. Like, whose permission do you need? And when do you not need the permission to do it? Like, I'm not really sure. So it's a great question, Anonymous. I think it's one that I should probably research a bit. But yeah, when it comes to these biopics, like, you keep hearing like, oh, okay, so to make this movie about Prince, they need the permission of the Prince estate. Okay, but then what about the other characters in the movie that are real life people? Do you need their permission to put them in the movie? Do you need So I don't know. I've never really known where that fine line is on all that kind of stuff. But it's a great question, dude. It's a great question. If you guys have some good links to how legally that works out from a copyright point of view and from a personal rights point of view, I would love to see it. Can you email me whatever links you have to john@thejohncampeashow.com? I would love to see it and let the anonymous viewer know. All right, Glenn Tracy writes, okay, John, time for a curveball. What movie do you enjoy more, the original Predator or the original Alien? Wait a second, the original Predator or you're saying Aliens, which is the name of the second film. I'm going to assume you mean the original Alien. Anyway, I think this is a good example. One franchise never living up to the original Predator that never made a better sequel, and Aliens took the franchise further. Oh, okay. So you are asking about the second film, Aliens. Oh, Aliens. Aliens, yeah. I was going to say I prefer the original Predator over the original Alien. They're both great. But I prefer the original Predator over the original Alien. But Aliens, the second film, it's my second favorite action film of all time. It's my second favorite action film of all time. Yeah, that movie is like still one of the best ever. I love that film. So yeah, I like Predator very much, but yeah, I go, and you're right. It's a good example of one that started off really strong, was never able to live up to the potential of the original. Whereas the second one is a sequel I thought even exceeded the original. Although you will find people making an argument that the first Alien is better than the second one, and there's an argument to be made for that, but I kind of side with the majority there. I kind of did like Aliens more than Alien. Good question, man. All right. Sly Goose writes, hey, John, hope you're having a great day. I am having a great day so far, other than the fact that I had to start it late. Just wanted to share my top 10 movies. Number 1, Interstellar. Number 2, Pan's Labyrinth. Number 3, Rogue One. I love Rogue One. Number 4, Event Horizon. I'm not a big, you know what? A number of people share Event Horizon in their top list, and I've never been a big fan of Event Horizon, but it is interesting to see a bunch of people actually like really do rank it very high. Number 5, Super Dark Times. Number 6, Avatar. Number 7, Platoon. Number 8, Coraline. Number 9, Revenge of the Sith. And number 10, Shrek 2. You know what? Shrek 2 is my favorite of the Shrek films. I remember I had a very heated debate with a buddy of mine once. I don't know how it came up, but it was not long after Shrek 2 came out. And we had a heated debate about whether it was better or worse than Shrek 1. And to me, Shrek 2 is still the best of the Shrek films. I love that one. That's a nice list, Silly Goose. Thanks for sharing it, man. All right, the Wakanda Forever writes, I used to only watch action films and sci-fi films. I think a lot of film fans are like that. They have one particular kind of genre that they like to watch, and they kind of limit it to that, unfortunately. I never watched foreign films, and I hated the idea of reading subtitles. You're not alone. A lot of people do. Then I saw The Artist from 2011. I saw that movie and was mesmerized. Now I watch films of all types. What film changed you as a film fan? If you're talking about what film was really the one that made me appreciate foreign film and to also appreciate subtitled films and things like that, you know, honestly, I've always been okay with them as long as I can remember, because besides Star Wars, one of my personal earliest introductions to watching movies a lot was, and this sounds stereotypical, but was watching the classic Kung Fu movies that were always either dubbed or subtitled, right? Dubbed or subtitled. It was always one of the two. And it just got me, because I just kind of started my film watching journey, other than Star Wars, but I in the earliest days of my film watching journey, subtitles and foreign film, because of the genre, was just a normal part of it. So, yeah, I've always kind of had an appreciation for those movies. At least, let me say this. It's not that I have a greater appreciation for subtitle movies than other movies. It's just that it's never been a detriment to me, because I kind of grew up with it like that. There are drawbacks to subtitles. Here, to me, this is the biggest drawback of the subtitles, of a movie with subtitles. The biggest drawback of a movie with subtitles is your eyes can't be on the face and the expression of the actors as they speak the lines, because your eyes have to be, like, instead of being up here, I'm up here. Hey guys, I'm up here. You know, instead of being up here, our eyes are down here reading the script. And so we're losing out on a little bit of the performance. We're losing out on a little bit of the nuance of the performance. but still, really, for the most part, it's never a big deal to me. And I just grew up with it. So yeah, but The Artist is a good one. Amelie is a good one. The Departed is a good one. Those are the films I hear a lot of people today say a movie that got them into subtitle films: Artist, Amelie, Departed, or Infernal Affairs, the original version of Departed. Those are usually the ones that people tell me are the ones that got them into those sorts of films. All right. Wakanda Forever also writes, is there a way to make an Apollo Creed standalone film work? We got movies about his best friend, rival, and about his son. If it wasn't for Rocky IV, a film of his upbringing and road becoming champ would be fascinating. Carl Weathers still looks good. Oh, you couldn't do it with Carl Weathers. I mean, no, you couldn't do it with Carl Weathers. But John, the de-aging, yeah, Irishman showed us that doesn't really work. And I think it especially wouldn't work very well if it was a lot of action going on. Let's put it this way. I didn't think Creed was a good idea. I didn't want to see a movie about either Rocky's son or Apollo Creed's son. I didn't think it was a good idea. To me, it was just a desperate attempt to keep a franchise going. And then Creed came out. And it's like, oh my God, this movie's so good. I mean, Creed is amazing. I even like Creed 2. Not as much as Creed 1, but I even like Creed 2 quite a bit. So, I don't know, a movie just called Apollo. That could be interesting. Because it could be a movie about, his upbringing and then becoming world champion. Because when we meet Apollo in the first Rocky movie, he's already champ and has been champ for a while. So you could do that. You could. I don't know if it's the first one I race for, and you definitely couldn't use Carl Weathers, but who is great, by the way. But maybe, before Creed, I don't think I would have had any interest in an Apollo movie. Having seen Creed and seeing you can go back into that world, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. It's the more I'm talking about it, the more the idea is growing on me. So maybe. All right, next up. Wakanda also writes, hey, John, fans can't wait for the inclusion of all Marvel characters in the MCU. Over under 10%, we get a crossover movie that includes a version of the new X-Men, Fantastic Four, Deadpool, as well as the original Avengers in the next 10 years. Well, here's the thing. 10 years is a long time, and 10% is a very small number. To me, that sounds like a total mess. To me, that just sounds like a big, jarbled mess. Better suited as a 10-minute YouTube video than a feature film. But 10 years is a long time, and 10 minutes or 10% is a small number. So even though I think it would be a big chaotic ball of chaos mess, I have to say the chances of that happening in the next 10 years would be over 10%. Maybe not a lot over, but 10% is a low number, so I got to go over. I'm going to take the over on that. All right, next up, Wakanda writes, hey, John, I got my first call out on the show, The Kryptonian Eternal. Who am I? I'm a sworn protector of Wakanda and trusted advisor to King T'Challa. Wakanda forever. I'm a fellow human being and a film fan, a guy who loves the show and the community. That is who you are. Thanks for sharing that, man. All right, Call of Duty God writes, sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level, man. I really appreciate it. If there's a question in here, you're going to see this question answered now and in a future standalone video in the next few weeks. Give us a few weeks to get around to that, though. We're a little backed up. All right. I'm sorry, John, I forgot to press send for the second part of my question from Open Mic. If Zod killed Martha, and if Snyder uses... Oh, I remember, because you asked, hey, how do you think it would change the movie if Zod, when he showed up at the Kent farm, killed Martha instead of just threatened her? I remember that. I didn't realize there was a second part to your question. And if Snyder used time travel, reverse Earth's access superpower to bring her back alive... John, does it ruin your appreciation for Man of Steel, or does the 1978 Superman time travel power work for you now? In 1978, it worked for me, but if Snyder did it in Man of Steel, would the highly regarded Cavill stand-up still be in studio? That's the one he's talking about right here. You can see Cavill stand-up right behind me. Still be in studio, or would you replace it with, let's say, Sonic the Hedgehog? What if, John? LOL. Okay, so for those of you who might have missed it, and again, thank you, Call of Duty God, for supporting the channel on that level. All of us here appreciate it very much. He asked the question the other day, how do I feel the movie would change? But I didn't realize there was a second part of the question. But the way that the question came across was, how do I think it would have changed the movie if when Zod showed up, at the Kent farm if he had killed Martha before Clark was able to get there to save her. And I said, oh man, that would have been a very interesting change of events. Because I think if Clark gets there and finds his mother murdered at the hands of Zod, I think you're looking at the beginning of Injustice Gods Among Us. For those of you who don't know anything about Injustice Gods Among Us, Clark suffers a horrible, horrible loss. And it breaks him. And then like a chip in a windshield, like a crack in a windshield, as the story progresses, that crack starts to spread. And you can see it corrupting him more and more. That in the comic series of Injustice Gods Among Us, Clark suffers a horrible loss and it broke something in him. And that break continued, the damage of that break, like the crack in a window, continued to spread and spread and spread until he straight up became the villain. And what I said at the time was, if Clark had gotten there only in time to see Zod murder his mother, I think there's a possibility you're looking at the start of Injustice Gods Among Us. I think that the way they paint so beautifully in that movie, the relationship between Clark and his mom, if you witness Zod murder his mom, oh, F that. Oh my God. Yeah, you're looking at the beginning. First of all, he rips the heads off all the Kryptonians, and then slowly he becomes the villain. I mean, I really do. But what if instead, because everybody knows I don't like the use of time travel normally, because to me, it's a cheap cop-out. Time travel in movies is a cop-out because there's no problem ever in any movie that couldn't be solved with time travel, right? There's no problem in any movie that can't be solved with time travel. And so I find time travel to be a lazy man's plot device. Don't get me wrong, there are some great movies that use time travel, absolutely. Star Trek: The Voyage Home, Back to the Future, obviously there are, and I love those. But generally speaking, so how would I have felt if in Man of Steel, which I love so much, if Clark showed up, Zod had murdered his mother, and then Clark did the old Christopher Reeve Superman thing of flying around the Earth in reverse to make the Earth spin in the opposite direction. Besides the fact that that would have torn the planet apart, let's just go with it for now. To turn back time so he could get there in time to save his mother. I would have hated that moment. I think I still would have loved the movie. Just because there's a moment in a movie you hate doesn't mean that doesn't necessarily have to affect your enjoyment of the overall movie. I think I still would have loved the movie, but it probably would have diminished my appreciation a little bit because there would have been that one part that I absolutely hated. Because once you start introducing that, then there's no consequences, right? Superman doesn't have to save the day. It's like, oh, what's that? What? Solomon Grundy? Threw 5 school buses filled with children off the Empire State Building? All right, listen, I'm watching the football game right now. I'll deal with that. Give me 2 or 3 hours. I'll deal with that. And then 2 or 3 hours after he finishes eating his Pop-Tarts and watching the football game, he puts on his cape and goes, okay, what was that, 4 hours ago? Okay, fly around the planet backwards, blah, 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 stop Solomon Grundy from killing the school bus of children. Okay, all good. It takes away any potential consequences that can happen. There's no stakes anymore. There's no consequences anymore. And so I still would have loved the movie, but I do think Call of Duty, I think it would have affected my appreciation. I do. Anyway, thanks for sending that in, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for sending in the follow-up. All right. 50 Shades also writes, movie theaters, or 50 Shades of Geek writes, movie theaters in Israel are expected to open on June 14th. 1 week from when, so they are going to be open in time for Tenet. 1 week from when I'm writing this. I don't want to get my hopes too high, but man, I'm excited. Sniff, sniff. John, do you smell that? It's the smell of fresh popcorn. Oh, I know. Dude, I'm excited. Seriously, from when I began going to the movies by myself, and let me bring this up here. Hold a second here. Let me just find the date on this. Okay. From the first time my mother let me go into a movie theater with my friend without my parents coming in with us was a movie called Six Pack. Now, I didn't get to go by myself, but they brought us to the theater, let us go into the theater and watch by ourselves. It was this movie called Six Pack, and I was 9 years old, I think. Since that time, I have never gone this long without going into a movie theater. I've never in my life gone this long without going into a movie theater. It's been what, like almost 3 months? I've never gone 3 months. Ever since that day, I don't think I've ever gone 3 months without stepping into a movie theater. It is crazy. And every once in a while, when Ann and I go for late night walks and we'll walk to downtown Burbank, we'll walk down to AMC Burbank 16 and go, like, oh, I cannot wait to go back. I cannot wait to go back. I'm so excited to get back into the movie theaters again. So yes, man, I can almost smell the popcorn now. I can almost smell the popcorn now. And my brother-in-law, Ray, is saying, the last movie in theaters that he saw was Impractical Jokers. I keep forgetting they actually put out an Impractical Jokers movie. I keep forgetting about that. Whenever I go over to Ray and Ryan's place, like they just, whenever I walk in the door, there is literally an 80% chance that Impractical Jokers is on the TV. Either Impractical Jokers or some Lifetime Network romance movie. One of the two. When I walk into the house, sorry, 3 things. One of 3 things will be on the television when I walk into the house. Impractical Jokers, a Lifetime Network romance movie, or 90 Day Bride, or whatever that what is, 90 Day Wedding, 90 Day Bride, whatever that stuff is called. One of those 3 things will be on the television when I walk into the house. All right, next up, 50 Shades. Also writes, Heaven Sent is my favorite Peter Capaldi era episode of Doctor Who. It's a master class in both acting and storytelling. It's a shame the next episode after that was a huge disappointment, though. Please tell me you watched it yet. Oh, I have no, I still haven't seen it. You know, so I've had a bunch of people tell me, because one of the shows I do not watch, not because I don't like it, I've just never watched it, is Doctor Who. I'm not a Doctor Who viewer, but I've been having a bunch of people lately tell me that, John, you really should, and start by watching this one episode, which some people call it like their favorite episode of television ever, which is the episode of Doctor Who called Heaven Sent. I don't know anything about it. I know very little about Doctor Who. I used to watch Doctor Who when I was a little kid, when I can't remember the actor's name who had the big brim hat and the red scarf. I used to watch it when he was Doctor Who a little bit as a kid, in the reruns, but I have not watched it yet. Right now I'm trying to get through Avatar. Right now, I'm trying to get through Avatar: The Last Airbender. Once I get through that, maybe I'll have a chance to check out the Heaven Sent episode. All right. Wakanda Forever writes, quick one for the kids. Why didn't Tony Stark like his new assistant? He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. Waka waka. Even in Wakanda, I'm a nerd. Hey, John, we know the DC Holy Trinity. Which Marvel heroes would you never job? Black Panther is the first one on the list, of course. Listen, I think jobbing is a part of the comic world. Sometimes most of your characters, the vast majority of your characters, need to job sometimes. I think there is a very few select characters that you should never, ever job under any circumstances. In the DC world, there's 3. That's it. Out of the hundreds of characters DC has, I believe there's only 3 that there should be a rule they never job. And the only time you should think about it is if it's one of the 3 fighting each other. That's the only acceptable time that can happen. And that, of course, is the Trinity: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. I don't think any of those should ever job. And the only time it's even remotely acceptable is if one of them are fighting the other one. That's the only remotely time. In Marvel, I'm not really sure. I don't know that there is an untouchable. I mean, oh gosh. I mean, they had Spider-Man, but Spider-Man's a kid, and they had Cap, whip Spider-Man in Civil War. You had Cap beat Iron Man. You had, I don't know. The only one I don't think they should do, probably I only have one, and that's Hulk. I don't think you should ever job Hulk. I would make an exception to that if some supreme galactic power, like a Thanos with an infinity gauntlet on his hand, that becomes acceptable to a degree. I thought, Some people will say, well, in Thor Ragnarok, they had Hulk job to Thor. And I'm like, no, that fight never concluded. Because listen, at some point, Hulk just angrier, and I call that one a draw. So I'm cool with that. And it was against Thor, the God of Thunder. But I don't know that I have any personally in the MCU that I would consider unjobbable under the right circumstances. But I'd have to think about that. All right, Dan Ketchum writes, if they are not recasting Rose like they should, wouldn't it make more sense to switch to a Batgirl series? Nah. With Barbara Gordon, then introduce a new unknown as Batwoman, given that all of Batwoman's relationships and story arcs are out the window anyway. So what Dan's referring to, those who don't know, of course, the big news the other day was that Ruby Rose, the actress who plays Kane on Batwoman, and of course, Kane is Batwoman, she left the show. She's not going to be on season 2. And then reports came out that not only is Ruby Rose not playing Kane, they're not even going to have the Kane character be Batwoman anymore. They're going to have a totally new character play Batwoman. Which to me, the more I think about it, the more ludicrous it is. Because number one, just recast. It's simple. You just recast. The audience will feel awkward for about 30 seconds, and then our brains will adjust. Okay, this is the new character. This is the new actor playing this character. But by replacing the character altogether, you're right. All of the main story threads go out the window. I just don't understand that. Now, I don't think the answer is switch the whole series to a Batgirl series. That's a completely different series. So I don't personally, Dan, I don't think that's the answer. But I agree with you. I'm baffled at the notion of, if the actress leaves, just recast the actress. Why not? Why do you have to change the entire... Why do you have to say it's a totally different character who is putting on the Batwoman cowl? That makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and I'm still there, Dan. But I don't think the Batgirl angle is the way to go. All right, Joke Carnahan and Andy writes, glad you participated in the Black Lives Matter rally. Hope you didn't break any windows. Dude, that's not funny. That's not funny. Seriously, though, it's important to listen to others during these times. Yeah, and listen, Ann and I both went to this great Black Lives Matter rally the other day. And I think part of it is because, listen, when you're as out of touch as I am on the issues that affect other people, listen, I might think I'm in touch and I read up on stuff. But the reality is, in a very real way, I'm not in touch with that stuff. I'm not. I can try to be. I can read about it. I can listen. I can participate in discussions about it. I can hear other people talk about, but I'm out of touch when it comes to the way certain issues affect certain people, because I'm not those people. And I think everybody, wherever you are on the scale, I think everybody owes it to themselves, and everybody owes it to their communities to try, at least, to become a little bit more in touch with it, if you can. And I thought it was important, Ann and I thought it was important to go to that rally, and it was tremendously done and tremendously handled. And there were people who got up who told stories that, it's one thing to read about certain stories. It's another thing to be there in person, where a person is actually standing there. You are physically in the space with them, and they're telling their story. It hits a little deeper. It brings it a little bit more home. So listen, I am somebody who's completely out of touch when it comes to those issues and how it affects certain people. I am. But I just think there's nothing special about me. I just think we all owe it to ourselves to try to become a little bit more in touch, if we can, to try to listen, to try. Maybe I'll never understand certain things to the depth that other people do. Maybe I won't. But I at least owe it to myself to try to understand. And yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Joe. Appreciate it. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I finally decided to suck it up and watch Scoob, and I loved it. You know what? I heard from people who hated it, but I also heard from people who actually quite enjoyed it. And I loved it. It fails as a Scooby-Doo movie, but as a fun animated Hanna-Barbera crossover movie, it succeeded greatly. I loved it as a Scooby-Doo fan, but even more as a dog owner like you. Try it. I don't know if I'm going to waste 2 hours of my time to watch that. I didn't like the notion of it. I hated the trailers of it. And then when I heard it's not even remotely a Scooby-Doo movie, it's a very, very different movie from what a Scooby-Doo thing would be. It's a superhero movie because apparently the studio execs were like, it's got to have superheroes because that's all the kids like today is superheroes. Let's put in superheroes. Nothing about it interests me. Now, again, I've heard from some people that said they really liked it, and that's awesome. If you watched it and liked it, that's great. I know it looked like it has no appeal to me, and I've also heard from a number of people who really disliked it. So I'm like, I've got so many things that are in my queue that I'm so far behind on watching that I'm not going to add something to the queue that I have no interest in. So I appreciate that you loved it. That's great. And I can't say that I didn't like it because I haven't seen it, but I can just tell it's not, I got too many other things that I need to get to. You know what I mean? I just got too many other things to get to. So if you liked it, awesome, but I'm probably not going to be taking 2 hours to watch it. I got other things I need to catch up on. All right, thanks for that, 50 Shades. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, check out the Doctor Who episode from 2018 titled Rosa. It's about the Rosa Parks in 1955. The Doctor and friends sat on the bus but can't interfere with history. Gripping stuff. That sounds powerful. Seriously. Just reading about the story of, for those of you who don't know anything about Rosa Parks and why she's an important figure, just do a very quick Google search and you'll find it was in an era when, you know, like if you were a black person getting on a bus, you couldn't even see, you had to sit at the back of the bus. And Rosa Parks was a woman who just said no. Anyway, it's a powerful story. There have been many things told about it, but I didn't know there was a Doctor Who episode about that. That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Again, I've never watched Doctor Who, so apparently I got to watch Heaven Sent first, and then I need to watch Rosa. So I'll see if I can get that in. All right, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John, question. Which trailer did you like most? Logan, the first trailer, Man of Steel trailer, or the Batman vs. Superman Comic-Con trailer? I think for me it's Logan. With the Hurt song and the tone of the trailer, it just spoke to me the most. Oh yeah, no doubt. Listen, that first Batman vs. Superman trailer that played at Comic-Con, probably, I mean, it's a top 10 trailer. It's a tremendous trailer. But Logan trailer. Man, and by the way, I love Man of Steel, but the trailers weren't, I mean, the trailers for Man of Steel were fine. They were good, but they didn't blow my socks off or anything. That Logan trailer with the Johnny Cash voice in the background, I don't know. Maybe if I think about it, but I don't know that there's ever been a comic book movie trailer that I've liked more. I mean, it's just on another level. I mean, that was breathtaking. And it really communicated this movie is not going to be like your traditional, typical superhero film. And the trailers communicated that. And I thought it was great. Let's see here. Next up, Ben Dolphins 3 writes, watching since the early AMC days. Thank you so much, Ben. I love what you do, John. Why fire Kathleen Kennedy as president of Lucasfilm? She has steered the franchise into making billions of dollars. I get that there's been director issues, but bottom line, Star Wars has been very successful. Well, I mean, here's the thing, Ben. It all depends on what your definition of success is. Now, listen, look, I am a big Kathleen Kennedy fan, right? I've made no qualms about that. I think she's one of the most tremendously gifted producers Hollywood has ever seen. You know who else says that? Steven Spielberg, the greatest filmmaker of all time. She is top-notch as a producer. But yes, no matter how good you are in one job, that doesn't necessarily automatically you'll be great in another. And I think there have been issues with Kathleen Kennedy as the head of Lucasfilm. On the one hand, have they made money? Yes. Also under her watch, they put out the first Star Wars film in history that lost money in Solo. But they also have one of the only films in history to make $2 billion or more. And every Star Wars film in the saga has made $1 billion or more under her watch, including Rogue One. Rogue One made over $1 billion as well. It's impressive. But if you are only and exclusively evaluating her track record based on the financial results, then yes, you'd go, wow. Like 4 out of the 5 films under her watch have made $1 billion. One of them made $2 billion. That's impressive. It is impressive. It is. However, if you're taking a more holistic look at what's going to define success, it becomes a little more muddled. Michael Bay, his Transformers movies made incredible amounts of money. But other than the first one, they were mostly garbage. They probably could have done better. It's like this. Let's use a sports analogy, right? You've got a coach of a team, and like every year they get into the playoffs. I mean, that's great. It's not easy to get into the playoffs in a sports league. In a professional sports league, it's not easy to make it into the playoffs. And so you got this one coach that always gets them into the playoffs. But you go 6 or 7 years of never getting out of the first round or out of the second round of the playoffs. You never get into the third round or into the championships. You never get there. You're never able to break through that. Then even though the coach has had success, they normally at some point have enough and they decide we need something different to try to go to the next level, and they swap out coaches. I would say Kathleen Kennedy, yes, on one level, the finances, other than Solo, they keep getting into the playoffs, man. They keep having success. But you also have a more divided fan base than you've ever had before. You also have more people disliking things than almost any other time before. Maybe not as much as when the prequel era, but almost. So, yeah, there are things that have been successes, but there are things that have been fails. And then the main failure to me is how she has operated as a head executive when it comes to the directors. You cannot underestimate or downplay this. It is the fundamentally most important job she has as the head of Lucasfilm, which is to make 100% sure you have matched the right filmmaker with the right project. That is her fundamental, most important job. And when you see out of 5 or 6 projects, they've literally had 4 to 5 significant director turnovers, that tells me this is not an area of efficiency for her. With all due respect, I think if there is a Hollywood Hall of Fame, Kathleen Kennedy is a first ballot Hall of Famer. When you look at her resume as a producer over the history of Hollywood, it is unmatched. Unmatched. But with all due respect, this clearly wasn't the right job for her. And I think, yes, there's some successes. By the way, if you're going to pile crap on her, you got to give her credit. The way she pulled Mandalorian together, she recognized the great idea in the pitch that Jon Favreau gave her. She realized what could round this out great is, Jon Favreau, I'm going to let you do this, but I'm going to match you up with Dave Filoni, who really understands our lore. We're going to match you guys up together, start pulling this together. I'm going to give you what you need to make sure this comes together and blah, blah. Hey, listen, if you're going to give her crap for the failures, give her credit when something works. You can't go, I blame her for that failure, but I give her no credit for the successes. You can't play it that way. Hey, that is an example where she as an executive really did her job well. But there's been too many examples when she didn't. So again, all due respect to her, and I believe she's a Hall of Famer. But this is clearly, I've been saying for years now, this is not the job for her. I was a big fan of her taking over the company. She was handpicked by George Lucas. Her resume is second to none. I was all for her hiring. I was all for it. I think it was the right move. But it didn't work. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. So that's that, Ben. Thanks for asking, man. All right. Senpaigar writes, while going down the rabbit hole on YouTube, I came across a channel called The Real Life Peter Griffin. His oldest video is a year old, but I haven't seen any of them before. I highly recommend you check it out. Love the one on traffic. I am completely unfamiliar with it. I have no idea what it is, but I'm sure there are probably some other viewers who are watching this right now who know exactly what you're talking about. B. Wayne, New York writes, Hey, John, been a fan since your AMC days. Thank you so much, my friend. So I heard you talk about not having a title for your new documentary. What do you think, in a world, the history of Hollywood movie trailers, it would be great tribute to the voice of the great Don LaFontaine? Well, here, there's two problems with it. While there's certainly a part of my documentary that looks at the history of trailers, this is not a documentary about the history of movie trailers. There's a bit of it that's about the history of it, but it's also looking at movie trailers in their evolution and where they are today and why they're so prominent today. So that's problem number one. The second big problem is this. In a World is already the name of another movie. There's a movie called In a World that stars Lake Bell. Oh, Lake Bell. I'm a huge fan of Lake Bell. I love Lake Bell so much. But she directed, it was her first directorial debut, I believe. She did a movie, I think she might have wrote it too, called In a World, where it's about the world of trailer narrators. It's called In a World. So believe me, I would love to use In a World in my trailer. But there's already a movie called In a World. I would love to use the name Coming Soon as the name of my documentary, but there's already a really good prominent movie news website called Coming Soon, which is great. You should read them if you don't. They're called comingsoon.net. I like that site. So yeah, it's a real struggle to find a title, man. It's a real struggle, but thank you for your input on that. All right, Tiberius writes, "Hey, John and gang. Thank you all for being an oasis amidst the trying times we find ourselves. As a 21-year-old state and local law enforcement officer, the events of the last few weeks have made me sick to my stomach, and I struggle with knowing what to say. What is happening right now seems almost too large for any one individual to fix and feels overwhelming. I suggest, from one cop's perspective, to engage in one act of kindness and acceptance at a time. Hopefully that will crescendo into a larger solution." Well, Tiberius, thank you so much for writing that in, man. And listen, I'm going to get some people that get mad at me for this, but like most things, I don't give a shit. So, you know, Anne and I, it's really Anne and her circle of friends before I married her, has one of the core members of their group that has grown up since grade school together. Like whenever we go to some of Anne's friends' big get-togethers, it's like this group of friends that has been this group of friends since like grade school and early high school. And they're all still in this big circle together. And one of the members of that circle, he's Latino and he's a cop. And he's a good man. And I just think, I hope people, this is me talking out of my ass because I'm not qualified to speak to this. Let me just say that up front and honestly, just average dude on the street giving his 2 cents worth, which is useless, but take that as it is. I always think it's dangerous when we paint anybody from a group with one paintbrush. I think that's dangerous. And it's unfortunate. You know? Whether it's a profession group, whether it's an ethnicity group, whether it's whatever. I always think it's sad and unfortunate. And it is the temptation. It is the temptation to always look at one group of people and paint it all with one brush. I think I've been guilty of that. I think we've all been guilty of that at one point or another. These are issues and problems that are so far beyond me to really, truly, fully understand. And you're right. Like I wrestle. As a matter of fact, about 15 minutes before today's show started, you know, Anne came into my studio as she does every day just before I start a show. And she was talking to me and, you know, with all the stuff that had been going on with the Robert Meyer Burnett and RB3 thing, which I'm so impressed and admire and respect both of those guys for how they came together and worked through their issues. And, you know, I think it's an example for all of us, including me. But it has really thrown a lot of things, including the world events going on in my face. And like, I was talking to Ann this morning about it. It's overwhelming. And it has really made me want to double down on the whole idea of like, this show is meant to be that oasis. right? We don't talk politics. We don't talk whatever on here. Now, when it comes to like human equality issues, when it applies to movie issues, we will delve into them then, because I don't believe human equality issues are political issues. I think those are human issues. But even then, I generally only speak about them when they are in terms and in context of the movies. Because I try to maintain that distance. Not because I'm trying to avoid anything, but it's for two reasons. Partially, it's a recognition that I'm not a voice of authority in any of this, as everybody else online seems to think they are. Everybody thinks they're an expert. I've said this for a long time. Everybody thinks they are the world's leading expert on what other people should do. Everybody is the world's leading expert on what other people should do. I very much recognize I'm not. I'm not. At all. So that's one of the reasons why I don't go into that stuff. But the other reason is, you're right. This show is meant to be an oasis for us as film fans. That we get together, we are allowed for just a couple of hours to put the struggles and the stuff that's going on, and the noise and the fires that are raging, and the real issues going on around us, important as they are. It allows us just for a minute to take a break, take a breath, refresh ourselves a bit, then so we can go back and deal with that stuff a little bit more. So that's my thing, Tiberius. So listen, man, I appreciate you being around since those early days, and thank you for being here and being a member of our community, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate that, man. All right. Tiberius also writes, on a brighter note, found a gem of a movie this weekend, the 2019 film Cosmos. I've not watched it, but I've heard about this. Made by two brothers with no budget and a simple love of filmmaking. They created my favorite movie so far this year, similar to 1997's Contact. I cannot recommend this movie enough. I have heard about this. Hold on a second. Cosmos. Let me see. Now, I hope this is the right one that I'm thinking of. Because the one I'm thinking of... Okay, I believe this is the right one. Cosmos, let me bring it up here so you guys can see what it is we're talking about. Again, now, I have not watched this. And the IMDb rating is not so great. But anyway, Cosmos explores the thrilling first hours of first contact when three astronomers accidentally intercept what they believe to be a faint coded signal from a distant alien civilization. Sounds good to me already. Again, the IMDb rating on it ain't so hot, but that's okay. I don't really trust IMDb ratings anyway. But I might have to check that out sometime, because again, sci-fi, the contact equation there, that all sounds good to me too. All right, let's move on here. Next one up comes to us from Orange Hand, who writes, the KBO, Korean Baseball League, are using stuffed animals, mannequins, and standees to simulate crowds at games. Should American sports leagues do something similar, or would that be too weird? Listen, I'm telling you right now, I've already been reading stories about how some networks and leagues are thinking about either putting in cardboard standees in the stadium, or to CGI, like much in the same way that they CGI in the first down markers and all that kind of stuff, to actually CGI in like techno, like audiences, like in the stand and stuff like that. I don't know. Listen, at first I thought watching sports without an audience would be too weird. But then guess what? UFC came back. And at first, it was a little weird for me watching the fights without a stadium full of people cheering and screaming. But you know what? After the first fight that I watched, pardon me, it was perfectly great. Don't get me wrong, I prefer it if there was a big audience there, yes. But I watched it. The UFC fights have been fantastic without it. So yeah, when the NBA comes back, when the NHL comes back, when the NFL starts up, when Major League Baseball, it's going to be a little weird at first. But honestly, then I think, like when a movie changes actors, I think our brains will tune in, will readjust and tune into what it is. And then I think it'll be fine. Still prefer with the audience, but I think it'll be fine. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they need to CGI or fake in an audience. I think they just don't need to. I did think they had to before, and then the UFC came back without a crowd, and I thought, you know what, this works perfectly fine. So, I don't know, Orange Hand, we'll see. All right, Joshua Richard writes, hey, John, I'm ready. I'm really hyped for the Batman. The cast is turning out to be star-packed. Cast with amazing actors, especially with Pattinson taking on the Cape Crusader. I'm wondering, how come there aren't actors on IMDb for Lucius Fox and Harvey Dent? maybe they're not in it. I mean, that's just that. It's just that simple of an answer. Let me look it up here. The Batman. Let's see here. Is there anybody listed as Lucius Fox or Harvey Dent? Nope. You don't need to have them. It's just that simple. You don't have to have them. They don't have to be there. Just because they're very important in one way and in one story, that doesn't mean they have to be there in another one. So, yeah, they are not even secondary characters. They're like third level characters. You know, Batman is a significant character. He's your main character. You got to have Jim Gordon. That's there too. You got to have Alfred. Gordon and Alfred are key examples of the second layer characters. So those are key and essential. Then you move down to third layer, about characters you can have in there, but don't necessarily absolutely have to tell your story. Like Carmine Falcone. You don't have to have Falcone in there. You can do another villain or other gangsters. You can do that. It's fine. Yeah, and other characters. So I wouldn't read anything into it at this point. But it might just be that the reason they're not on IMDb is because maybe they're just not in the movie. It's a possibility. All right, Nate Dogg writes, I just recently watched Cinema Paradiso, which is great, movies about movies. I love that film. It's always been one of my favorite films. I love movies that celebrate the love of film. Do you have a favorite movie about the love of movies? Well, this is going to be a weird one. Because there's like the Tim Robbins of The Player is a really great one. But one that I always go back to, and this is going to sound silly. Let me bring it up on IMDb too. This one's going to sound silly. What's it called again? Oh yeah. It's a 2001 film with, get this cast, Billy Crystal, Catherine Zeta-Jones, John Cusack, Julia Roberts, Stanley Tucci, Christopher Walken, Alan Arkin, Seth Green, Larry King was even in it. And actually, Rainn Wilson, before you knew him, before you really knew him on The Office, Rainn Wilson, Dwight Schrute, has a smart role in it. And it is called America's Sweethearts. This movie, to me, it is crazy because I've always liked this movie. And you see, again, the IMDb score is not that high. I think this movie is wonderful. I think this movie is great. I really enjoy this movie, but I gained a whole new level of appreciation for this movie because years after watching it, I actually moved to LA. Now, this whole movie is about, it all takes place during a press junket. Like, Billy Crystal plays a studio marketing guy who it's his job to market this movie with these two big movie stars being played by Catherine Zeta-Jones and John Cusack, and their characters used to be married. They were like America's sweethearts. But before this new movie came out, they divorced. They separated. And now the studio is panicking. How do we get people to come see this movie if they know these two are apart? And they come up with a scheme and they plan this big press junket weekend with movie press and everything and all that kind of stuff. And that's the basis of the movie, right? And so years after I saw this movie, and I actually started to attend these kinds of press junkets, it made me appreciate this movie more and more. From like the marketing point of view, the studio point of view, it's a silly comedy, but I'll tell you what, even though there's a bunch of people who clearly don't like this movie, it ranks right up there for me. I really like America's Sweetheart, so I would recommend that one, Nate Dogg. I would recommend that one. All right, next up. Smartest man in the chat writes, with Rob not being on a small hiatus from the show. Again, he was going to be here today, but I had to change the start time of the show, which made it impossible for him. Can you please bring back Chris Carr? Not necessarily in studio. She would do the show from home like Rob. Can't wait until Rob returns. And Aaron is fantastic, but it's been way too long since we've seen Chris. Yes, I agree. I am looking forward to seeing Chris back, but honestly, I tried Skyping her in once, and it didn't go well. It did not go well. So Skyping in Chris really wasn't an option. And Skyping, Aaron didn't really have either the right internet speed or whatever it was either. That's why Aaron comes in and does it from here, is because it didn't work so well. Now, Rob's got the perfect setup for it. He's got the right internet connection. He's got the right cameras and sound. He's got everything set up and lighting. He's got it all set up properly for a good quality stream. Unfortunately, Chris and Aaron don't. And since Chris is unable to, like right now, for very, very good reasons, unable to come in, we're just going to have to wait. But, I mean, hey, we're getting closer. We're getting closer and closer, man. We're getting closer and closer. All right, next up, Matthew Denton writes, a couple of my local theaters opened this weekend at lower capacity, of course. Got to see a double feature of two of my favorite movies, Kill Bill 1 and 2. Great to be back in my home, away from home, the movie theater. Dude, I cannot wait. I can't wait. I'm just waiting for them. You know, Cinemark said they're going to start slowly tomorrow. Cinemark starts to, in phases, reopen their theater chain tomorrow. Now, maybe that means 1 or 2 theaters open now, then maybe 20 the next week, then maybe another 30 the next week, who knows? But they're going to start rolling out their things earlier or soon, and that's great. I'm waiting for an announcement from AMC, because AMC is going to reopen. Whether they can stay in business is going to be another question, but they're at least said they're going to be able to reopen. And I just keep walking down to that AMC Burbank 16, brother. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. All right. Charles Ayala writes, best part of Commando is Bennett. I love Bennett with this black mustache and all that kind of, like, this just pure psych. Total 80s style action villain is Bennett. Total 80s style action villain. And the best part of Commando is Bennett. He is cool and slightly overweight with his tight leather pants, chain link vest, fingerless gloves, and that mustache, man. I'm telling you. John Matrix could pick up a phone booth and take out an army, but he lost me with the above the knee shorts. A lot of people forget too, Alyssa Milano is in Commando. She plays Schwarzenegger's daughter. But man, Bennett is such a template of what villains of action films of that era were, right? He was like the perfect template. He was the avatar, if you will, of that. I haven't heard anybody in a long time, Charles, mention Bennett. I think that's a great one to bring up. All right, Wakanda Forever writes, popcorn movies. Number 1, Black Panther. Number 2, House Party. Number 3, Spaceballs. I love Space. Number 4, Rocky 4. Number 5, Superman 2. Number 6, Fists of Fury. Number 7, Avengers Endgame. Number 8, Toy Story. Number 9, Austin Powers. Number 10, The Last Dragon. Honorable mentions to Blade 2. I'm actually one of those guys. I prefer Blade 2 over Blade 1. Anyway, The Wiz, Action Jackson, X-Men 2, Die Hard, and Clerks. Those are all good, fun movies to sit down and watch. Nice list, man. An anonymous viewer writes, just wanted to say a big well done to the people of New Zealand. Reports say that they have beaten the virus. Any New Zealanders watching, you are an amazing people from an amazing country. Yeah, I mean, for the last couple of weeks, we've been getting people writing in saying, hey, last week we had 5 new cases reported. That's amazing. Especially since, like, here we still have like thousands of new cases being reported every week. Because nobody wants to be smart. But yeah, well done, New Zealand, especially with all the stuff going on. The fact that you guys have clearly managed it very, very well. That is awesome. And I hope you guys get back up and running here really fast. Ryan writes, Dream fights, John Jones versus Israel Adesanya, Usman versus Masvidal. The thing about John Jones and Israel is, like, that's just too much of a weight difference. But John, one guy fights. Yeah. I know that they fight at weight classes not terribly far apart, but Israel is a small dude for his weight class. John Jones is a big dude for his weight class. I don't see that happening. It would be very, 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 very tough to see that happen. So it'd be weird. I think Israel beats John Jones, to be honest with you. I think Israel beats John Jones. Look, to be honest with you, John Jones shouldn't even be light heavyweight champion right now. Dominic Reyes beat him. Like, I watched that fight again. I seriously don't know what the judges were looking at. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't lopsided. I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying there wasn't an element of it that was close, but I thought definitively, Dominic Reyes won that fight. But hey, whatever. Pound for pound, I don't think Jones, oh geez, well, I took a big jump here. I haven't had a jump in this like a while. So where am I here? It took a massive jump. Hold on a second. I gotta find out where I was again. But anyway, the other thing about Masvidal versus Usman would destroy him. Usman would destroy Masvidal. I'm sorry, I've said this before, I will say it again. Masvidal is an above average fighter. He is not a great fighter. His record speaks for itself. He doesn't have a lot of wins more than losses. I think he's like got 13 losses on his record or something like that. And not 13 losses from fighting the top talent. Like there are guys who will have like 6 or 7 losses, but all those losses are in like title fights and fighting like all the top 3 or 4 guys. And that's where they lose their fights. Masvidal's record isn't that great. And you put him in there against an Usman will destroy him. I think Usman would destroy him. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I don't like Jorge Masvidal. I do. I think he's an entertaining dude to watch fight. He very much is. But yeah, I just think he's overrated. I really do. I would love to see him get to something with a legit top 3 guy and prove me wrong, but I don't think he can get in the ring with a legit top 3 or 4 guy. I don't think he can, but we'll find out. We'll find out. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, just found a movie on Disney Plus I never heard of and really like. Candle Shoe. I have never heard of it either, as a matter of fact. With Jodie Foster as a teen delinquent looking for pirate treasure, helped by David Niven as a master of disguise butler. Also, the final film of EGOT, Helen Hayes. Okay, so obviously this is something from very, very early in her career. Candle Shoe. Let's see this. 1977, so I was like 4 years old when this thing came out. Candle Shoe. We'll bring this up here. Yeah, I am completely unfamiliar with this. David Niven, Helen Hayes, Jodie Foster. Yeah, 1977 film. I am completely unaware of it. I'm not familiar with it. Let me read the thing on this. Welcome to Candle Shoe, a stately English manor where a swashbuckling pirate hid a fortune in Spanish bullion centuries ago. And that's what young orphan Casey and a sly con man are determined to find. Yoinks! I mean, that's okay. That sounds interesting. It's movies like that something like Disney Plus has real value because it gives you that sort of, it gives you that extra thing to look forward to. All right. Edward Wells writes, pulled out the DVD case this weekend and put on Ben Affleck's Daredevil. I watched it every couple of years. Despite its faults, I still get a kick out of it. I am an unapologetic lover of that Daredevil movie. I contend it's not one of the great comic book movies, but I contend that if you took out that god-awful teeter-totter sequence in the park, if you take that sequence out, I say Daredevil is a great movie. And everybody yell at your screen all you want, laugh at me all you want. I think you take out that abysmal teeter-totter scene, I think that's a great movie. With the teeter-totter scene, I still really like it. I still think it's really good. Or I was talking a little bit earlier about Michael Clark Duncan playing Kingpin. I thought he was great in it. I thought Colin Farrell was great in it. That scene on the airplane when he murders the lady next to him with a peanut. Come on. That's great. I thought Ben Affleck was great in it. I thought Favreau. I really like that movie. And I don't care who knows it. So since so many people dislike it, I guess I got to call it a guilty pleasure. Fine, I'll call it a guilty pleasure. I really like that movie. But that's just me. All right. I watch it every couple of years too. I dig the movie. I don't care. I dig the movie. Wakanda Forever writes, paraphrasing, life is a storm. You will bask in the sunlight one moment, be shattered on the rocks the next. It sounds like Count of Monte Cristo. What makes you a man is what you do when that storm comes. Tell the storm. Do your worst, for I will do mine. The Count of Monte Cristo 2002. Look, we've already talked about Count of Monte Cristo a couple of times in the last few weeks. It's been brought up. I appreciate that movie a lot. Everybody who has seen Count of Monte Cristo seems to like it, but it very rarely ever gets talked about. Even when it first came out, there wasn't a lot of dialogue about Count of Monte Cristo, even when it first came out. But it's one that I continue to appreciate. Good, thanks for bringing that one up. All right, guys, I just have a couple of minutes left here. We've already gone overtime, so I'm going to fly through a few more that's left. Diamond Dogs Puppy writes, hello, John. Underrated film for today is 1997's Switchback. I'm not familiar with that one. Starring Dennis Quaid, Jared Leto, and Danny Glover in a role very against type. Excellent cat and mouse thriller about a lethal serial killer who kidnapped an FBI agent's son's thoughts. I've never even heard of it. Now, I'll bring it up here. Let me bring it up and see if I recognize it all. I don't recognize the film. I have no recollection of this movie whatsoever. Arlie Emery was in it. Walton Goggins was in it. William Fichtner is in it. I love him. Like Danny Glover, Jared Leto. I've never heard of it. An FBI agent tries to catch a serial killer who kidnapped his son. I'm not familiar with it. So thanks for putting that one on my radar, man. Wakanda Forever writes, hey, John, I was thinking, and I can't believe I've never asked you this. What is your favorite Black Panther moment or appearance from the MCU movies? Mine is in the UN speech from the end credits of Black Panther. I love you all. Stay safe. Wakanda Forever. I think, you know what? I think my favorite moment isn't even from the movie. I think my favorite moment is from Civil War. And I'm paraphrasing here. I'm sure I don't have it completely right, but it's one that gave me chills at the time. It's after Black Panther and Captain America have had their first fight on the road, and S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up and arrests them both. And they're riding in the truck going back to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. And they're talking about Bucky. And T'Challa says a line that's something along these lines. Then tell me, as a warrior, as a king, do you think you can protect him from me? There's just something, again, I didn't do it word for word properly, but the way he says that, basically the insinuation, you think you can protect him from me? I don't know. There's something about that moment that I've always liked a lot and just kind of gives me chills a little bit. So I would say off the top of my head, that's my favorite moment from him. All right, an anonymous viewer writes, I don't understand why the new Looney Tunes cartoons are stripping Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam of their guns. They had them for years and no problems. Why take them away now? They're still going to use knives and TNT, so what's the difference? Well, look, I'm not going to wade into the political discussion on this. I'm not going to wade into the political discussion at this at all. But the difference, if you're going to ask what's the difference is we don't, on what feels like a very regular schedule, hear about mass stabbings at a school or mass stabbings at a mall. We don't often hear about that. It's often about guns. Look, I am not sitting here saying, don't drag me into this. I am not sitting here saying that I think they should have taken Elmer J. Fudd's gun away from him. I'm not saying they shouldn't have taken Elmer J. Fudd's gun away from him. I'm not saying either way. I'm not even sure which side of the fence I come down on that at. But I get it. I get it. Again, I haven't even in my own head decided whether that was a good move or not, but I get it. I get it. Guns are a really, really hot topic right now. And listen, when those original Looney Tune cartoons came out with Elmer J. Fudd and Yosemite Sam, we weren't waking up every few months to news of another mass shooting in this place or that place or whatever. It was a different time. It was a different era. Again, I'm not saying I think they should have taken the guns away in the cartoon. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think if you're even slightly aware, you've got to be able to go, okay, I get why maybe I may agree or I may disagree, but I can get where they're coming from at least. You can still agree or disagree with them, but you can at least get where they're coming from because no, it's not the same as them having a knife or having a stick of TNT. It's not the same. It's very different. And you know it's different. It's just the environment we're in right now. Again, I am not saying whether I think A or B. I'm simply saying I get that. I understand why they might make that decision. Whether I agree or disagree with it, I at least see where they're coming from. So there's that. But then again, I'd have to ask, why is it important that Elmer J. Fudd have a rifle? I don't know that it's important that he does. All I need to know is that he's out to get the Webbit. That's all I need to know. But again, I'm not even sure where because I'll be honest, I asked myself the question the other day. It's like, okay, I get it. I get the struggle about, do we have a character like this having guns right now? But then I wondered to myself, but okay, if you do want to take it away from him, and I can understand where you're coming from, but then why not just not use the character? You got a lot of other Looney Tune characters. Why not just not use Elmer J. Fudd right now? And then maybe in 5 or 6 years when the climate's different, then bring him back in and still have him with his, iconic shotgun as he's hunting wabbits. So, I mean, I don't know. It's again, I don't know. But it's not as simple as we sometimes, me included, make it out to be. All right, Russell Amador writes, Alan, I was so upset when he died. Phil, how'd he die? Alan, World War II. Oh, this is Hangover. Phil, died in battle? Alan, no. He was skiing in Vermont. It was just during World War II. I remember that. I laughed myself so funny. He died in World War II. Really, in battle? No, he was skiing in Vermont, but it was during World War II. I love that moment. All right. Two more questions, guys, and we got to wrap it up here today. Ben Rayner writes, "Hey, John, I was talking to someone and it hit me. Did they move back Bill and Ted 3? If not, shouldn't there be a trailer soon? Isn't it coming in July or maybe it was August? Curious to hear your thoughts." Bill and Ted 3, I believe, isn't supposed to come out to the end of August. So we're still more than a couple of months away from it coming out. And again, everybody's just being really hesitant right now about when they release and spend those marketing dollars. They want to be 100% sure that their movie's coming out at the time. Remember, John Wick did not have its first trailer come out until 1 month before the movie opened. Remember that. So I expect we'll see one soon, especially if it looks more concrete, like that movie Unhinged with Russell Crowe is actually going to open on July 1st. Then especially, I expect one soon, but I don't think there's anything to worry about that we haven't seen one yet. I would think soon. All right, Connor writes, and this is the last question we have time for today, guys. Hot take, Samuel L. Jackson is better in Jackie Brown than he is in Pulp Fiction. I'm not expecting a lot of y'all to back me, but him threatening Robert Forrester, R.I.P., he's talking about the scene in the car, is better than the vengeance speech. Ordell is one of the coolest and most vile characters. So I'm going to disagree with you, but the juxtaposition of those two scenes, the vengeance scene and the in the car scene, are you sure you don't have anything you want to tell me? Last chance. I mean, is the subtlety of it, right? Samuel Jackson, Pulp Fiction, and that vengeance thing goes, whoa, like he's larger than life, right? In that big Samuel L. Jackson way. In the Jackie Brown scene in the car, it's just subdued. It's menacing. It's quiet. It's terrifying. They are two very different sides of a way Samuel L. Jackson can portray a scene, right? And that scene in Jackie Brown is great. Because so-and-so's in there, you're going to be the first one I put a bullet. I mean, there's just something about that scene. But I still got to go with the Pulp Fiction one. Man. That's still the one I got to land on. All right, listen. For everybody else who still had questions awaiting, Colby, Connor, Otto, Morcani, Michael Bradley, and everybody else all the way up, do not worry. You sent in those questions. Those questions are going to get answered properly in a video. I'm not 100% sure right now. If that'll be in a companion video later today or we'll just start off tomorrow's show with your live questions. But either way, the questions you sent in are going to get answered properly in a video, maybe in a companion video a little bit later today. I got a late start to my day today, so I'm not 100% sure. But if not, we'll start off tomorrow's show with those questions in tow. And by the way, guys, don't forget, you can send in questions. Even when the show's not live, you can send in questions. Just use the tip link that's in the top line of the description of this video, or you can just type it in yourself, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. That's you can send in your stuff. You'll get your comment or question read on the show, and you're supporting the channel at the same time. And to all of you guys who did send in questions for today's show, thank you guys so much for doing both, for giving us great fun things to talk about, and for supporting the channel at the same time. Don't forget, guys, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow. Robert will be joining me then, as he was supposed to join me today, but we had to change the time. So make sure you guys plan on joining us then and at that time. Guys, thanks so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Do the 4 main things, please. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.